Economic Success, Poverty, and Justice. This video introduces you to the ideas of economic success and the theories of poverty and what a just society is. Many of the questions that are asked about people that are happy or unhappy with our society come down to philosophies of justice. What makes a good society? Is a system set up to deliver those goods? Is the government delivering the goods as best as it can? Even on the question of should women's haircuts cost more than men's haircuts, there are probably plenty of differences of opinion, not the least of which depend on whether you identify as male or female. Furthermore, we all have developed a narrative of success that has been handed down by our families, our churches, our political and geographic backgrounds. Your belief or lack thereof in the American dream determines how you feel about whether or not we should tax the rich and what sort of social insurance and safety net policies are right. People in the U.S. tend to believe in the importance of individual variables in determining success more than people in Europe do, although this is changing for young people in the U.S. So let's start with engaging our own preconceptions. The following are questions from a Gallup poll of 5,000 Americans. So take a minute and answer each of these. Hard work and initiative, is that not at all important? Extremely important? Where exactly do you fall on that question? How about getting the right education and training? Young people, especially those in college, tend to put a high value on this, and it may be true, and it may be a little self-serving as well. How about risk-taking? This is important to the American narrative, and there are other reasons that you think are important, probably as well. What did we leave off the list? Here's what Americans answered. You can see that most of us value hard work and education as the most important factors to economic success. You'll notice there's both individual attributes and variables. Could that be part of the reason why the U.S. has a smaller social safety net than many other European countries? To push on the question further, which opinion most closely matches your own? A. From each according to his ability, to each according to his need. B. Taxation is theft. C. It would be better to redistribute somewhat toward the poor since they value each dollar more than the rich. D. A society should be judged on the welfare of its poorest citizens since any of us could end up there. Or E. None of the above. By the way, if you answered A, you were in alignment with Karl Marx. If you answered B, you'd be in alignment with a libertarian worldview. If you answered C, you would be in alignment with an economic point of view called utilitarianism. And if you answered D, you would be in alignment with the John Rawls argument, an important economic justice philosopher. More on those in a few minutes. And what do you think is the correct answer to this question? Is the U.S. level of income inequality higher, lower, or about the same as most other rich nations? And the answer is higher, A. One very large question that all of us should consider when we're deciding what types of policies and politicians to support is what our basic human rights are. Are there any basic economic rights to go along with our political rights? For instance, do you believe that health care or food is a basic right? If so, you'll favor a larger safety net than somebody who does not. Here's an interesting look at support for redistribution and how it depends on our models of economic success. For instance, if we go along the bottom horizontal axis, the first category, gender matters, means that people that answer that they believe gender matters strongly in getting ahead, and especially it's helpful if you're male, will tend to favor redistribution much more than people over to the right. On the far right, those are the people that believe that hard work is the key component to economic success, and they of course have much less support for redistribution. Here we see that most people think that the U.S. has more equal wealth distribution than it actually does. So wealth and income are different. Income is earnings mostly from wages over a year. Wealth is a stock of assets that a family has. Think real estate, stocks, etc. That's wealth. Income is what you bring home in pay. And they, of course, are related. So this looks at wealth inequality. Most people think the U.S. has more equal wealth distribution than it actually does, and they misunderstand how much inequality in wealth we have. But even so, they still want it to be more unequal than the fake equality that they think we have. They want it to be more equal, pardon me. And interestingly, if you look at the second and third rows, there's an income component. If your income is above $100K a year, you seem to be more okay with inequality than if your income is below $50K per year. We can condense the beliefs about what causes poverty into three basic ones for our purposes. They are flawed character, restricted opportunity, and Big Brother. If you believe that it's a flaw in character that is responsible for your poverty, in other words, poverty is something within you or endogenous, then you will not support many anti-poverty programs. Conversely, if you believe, as we have more in the modern interpretation does, that poverty and inequality are explained best by differences in opportunities or restricted opportunity for some, in other words, not individual characteristics, but something outside of us or exogenous to the individual, then your solution is different. You would want to change the system, offer a bigger social safety net, etc. And then there are those that are so cynical of corruption in politics and inefficiency in bureaucracy and misguided policies that they think the cure of government redistribution, even though there is a problem that requires a cure, that specific cure of the government helping is worse than the illness. There are many theories of justice, and I invite you to look into them all. For now, let's focus on Nozick, Rawls, and utilitarianism. John Rawls and Robert Nozick debated each other quite a bit about the justice of redistribution. John Rawls made a thought experiment that went something like this. If you didn't know to which family or which part of the earth you would be born, would you prefer to be placed in a country that has more even income distribution, or one that has wildly unequal economic success amongst its people? Because the second one is so risky, most of us answer behind this what he called veil of ignorance. We answered we would choose a more equal society. And because we cannot actually choose our parents, he argues that that huge role of luck and the riskiness of being born into an unequal society should push us to fight for more equality, more redistribution, since that's what people desire. On the other hand, Robert Nozick has a counter-argument, and that is, listen, if you get your economic rewards fairly, then it is unfair to take them away from you. He emphasizes the justice of the economic system that rewards you. There are, of course, counter-arguments to both of these critiques, if you will. For John Rawls, anytime you talk about redistribution, you change the rewards inherent to the system, and you may end up changing incentives and slowing down the economy. Or you may not. Turns out that incentives are different than we think they... Incentives tend to operate a little differently than we think. Monetary incentives are not nearly as strong, we're finding out in new research. And for Robert Nozick, it's a pretty big assumption to assert that the free market capitalist system as we know it is neutral, untouched by human hands, and its outcomes are therefore just. We turn to the last idea here, utilitarianism. It's a contribution from the world of economics. In this thought experiment, if Elon Musk has more dollars than a single mother working full-time living at poverty line, and if a dollar means much less to Elon Musk than to our single mother, then it follows that society's total happiness, or total utility, could be increased by taking some dollars from the person that has so many that they are meaningless, and redistributing towards the poor single mother working full-time. So that's a little bit about the philosophy of economic justice and the importance of different views of poverty.